Welcome to Anchor TV, shot from the hub in beautiful downtown Cartersville, held together with duct tape, paper clips, and Gorilla Glue. We come to you now live from the hub with our host, Mr. Bobby Lawrence. Hello, Bobby.
What's going on, Gordon?
We have a guest today.
Oh, yeah. Who we got?
He's right here.
I knew that.
Doug Belisle.
Yes.
Doug Belisle.
From the
here.
Collaborative.
Yes,
Yeah.
from that place. Welcome.
Good to be here.
Good to see you. It's
How's it
always a
going?
pleasure.
Yeah.
We know him.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. How's it going, man?
Man, it's going great. It's been one of those days.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, boy. We're just wasting time here.
Terrific.
Hey, we got to get to the thing here. So, hey, well, first of all, let's start off with the Collaborative. What exactly do you do?
So I work with a nonprofit here in Bartow County, and it's actually a network of nonprofits that are partnered together within the states. The only model of its kind really in the U.S. So all 149 counties or 159 counties in the state of Georgia have a person that is dedicated to making sure that collaboration happens within their county. And so my job basically is kind of like I'm the guy that makes sure that everyone is talking to each other so that we can work together and pull in the same direction for children and families in our counties and all of our state.
Now, are you talking about government entities or nonprofits? Or?
Sure. We work with nonprofits. We work with local businesses, with state and local government, with social services to kind of pull everybody together. Anybody that has anything to do with making sure that our families stay strong and making sure that our children are healthy and doing well in school. We partner with all of those sectors that have their hands in the pot, so to speak, when it comes to families and children. I mean, we believe that so goes the family, so goes the community. So if we want strong communities, we've got to strengthen families. And then that basically, if we're going to do that, that's a huge task. We got to have everybody working together. So it's all built really on those two things that we get accomplished. We accomplish more when we work together, and then also we need everybody working together to make our family strong if we're going to have strong communities.
And that's the end goal, is the family, right?
That's right.
Well, so every community ought to have that worldwide, really.
That's right. That's right. If you want a strong community anywhere you are, you've got to work on that family structure and make sure that you have strong and stable families.
So it sounds to me like you herd cats.
A little bit. A little bit. It's a little bit like that.
It's a little bit like that.
It was kind of like that today. As a matter of fact.
But a lot of the different organizations, 501(c), businesses, all have done a tremendous job here in Bartow County and in other counties in the state. It's not just a Bartow County thing, but it's a statewide.
That's right. And when we work together, I mean, you see that happen. And I hate that you see that there's so much disunity that gets seen from media,
Right.
that you don't get to see how communities pull together and how they're how they're really working together to solve problems within the community. You see
It takes a village.
doesn't it? What?
Wow.
Somebody ought to coin that phrase or something.
Oh boy. So
Village.
so also, not only that, it also works with all the churches too. So it's
That's right. The faith community is a vital part of what we do. I actually didn't start out in nonprofit. I was a pastor and worked in and on a church staff for 15 years. And I started becoming really involved in and interested in community ministry. I saw a lot of churches that had health within the organization, but weren't so concerned about the community around them. I mean, it was I guess you see from place to place a little bit of a country club mentality that forms instead of a hospital mentality. The church is there. The church exists for the people that aren't there yet, and we need to operate more like hospitals and less like clubs. And so I really branched over into nonprofit, seeking that community aspect of ministry and reaching out to the people most in need in our communities. And as I did that, it was really interesting. I found the church in the community, but not organizationally. The church is the people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people working towards unification and family stability and things like that love Jesus, that were connected with one another through a common faith, already in the community. So it was very exciting to see that.
So was that born out of just a call from God, or out of your own experiences or tragedies? What gave you this drive to do this?
That's a great story. And I'll share the Reader's Digest version. I bought a book by Mark Batterson called All In. And the basic premise of the book is that Jesus calls us to an all-in relationship. And there are people that kind of hedge their bets, with God. They say, okay, as long as everything's going well, and as long as life's okay, and as long as you don't ask me to do anything outside of my comfort zone, I'm good. But when God asks us to do something outside of our comfort zone, or when something happens that knocks life off course a little bit, all of a sudden we go, well, I'm not so sure I'm into this. And so it really talks about, are you all in? Have you pushed everything to the center of the table and said, whatever's in the cards, God, I'm good with, I'm in. And that book really challenged me. I really started to ask that question as I was reading that book, and just pray and say, God, am I really all in, or am I just playing around with this thing? And God really began to challenge me with some very hard things, some things that were pushing me out of my comfort zone. And I began to struggle. There were times that I wasn't sure if I was having a midlife crisis, or if I'd eaten bad Chinese food, or if it really was God talking to me. It was one of those crazy things where almost like in the story of Abraham, where God says, Abraham, leave the place that you know and go to a place, I'm not going to tell you where, but just go. Get in your car and drive, and I'll show you on the way. And I really felt like God was asking me to do some of those crazy things. And so I really started seeking some wise counsel. That whole thing of, God, is that really you? This doesn't even make sense. And so I started talking to people and saying, hey, this is what I think and I was very cautious. Maybe God is telling me this, but maybe I'm just crazy.
I got that a lot.
Which part?
So I went through this whole process, and with this particular issue, it was one of those life-altering issues, and we finally got to the point where we had to make a decision. Like it was, are we going to do this, or are we not? Is this what, God, is this what you want us to do? If it is, we're in, we'll do it. And so we went through this process and finally came to the day that we had set to say, okay, we have to have an answer by today. And I looked at my wife and I said, hey, we've been praying about this. What do you think? And she said, I think it's crazy. Absolutely not. I don't have a peace about it. And I was like, really? That's it, huh? We're done. And I really struggled with that, because I really had in my heart said, yes, if this is what God wants us to do, we are all in. And I'm not even going to say what the thing was, because it is that crazy. But it was one of those experiences where I was expecting to step over this line, and we didn't. And so in the weeks following, I was kind of in this funk, and I finally, one night told my wife, I said, what is up? Why did we go through this, 8-month process of all this prayer and all this pain and, angst about, should we do this or not? I said, for nothing. And my wife said, well, what if the point was just God saying, will you do the craziest thing that you can think of? If you'll submit to do that, then you're all in. And I was like, that's the prayer I prayed in the beginning that God ended up answering all these months later it wasn't the thing that he was asking. He was answering my prayer of are you all in? And it was shortly after I came to that realization that I was reading a devotional one morning, and the passage was Acts chapter 8 of Philip goes to Samaria, and he does this huge revival, and I mean the whole city is it's amazing. People are coming to Christ, and Philip's any evangelist's dream is the whole city is turning. And the passage says, and God spoke to Philip and said, go to the wilderness. And so Philip leaves and he goes to the wilderness and ends up meeting the Ethiopian eunuch, and all this cool stuff happens. But it's because in the midst of everything comfortable for Philip, God said, go to the wilderness. And I went into work that day on staff at church and sat down with my pastor and said, I have to resign. God's calling me to do something else. And he was like, what? And I said, I don't know, but it's not this. And I resigned not having any idea what was next.
And now you had a family at this time?
Yes, I had family with 3 kids. I went home and told my wife, I said, hey, I resigned. And she said, what? What are we going to do? I said, I don't know. But it was very clear, and we're going to move forward. And right about, it wasn't but days later that this position came open. And
wow.
And I resisted it for a long time until, about 12 people were like, hello, God's opened this door, walk through it. And I applied, and here I am. And it's been 5 years.
And probably are ministering to a broader people group. Across denominational lines, color. I mean, everything. Not only that, non-religious people.
That's right. I feel more like a community pastor than I ever have when I was on staff. I'm helping to meet needs, and I'm directing people, and I'm talking and creating conversations, and it's been super fulfilling.
Super. Well, so also through all that, doing what you're doing, there's also conflict.
Oh, no doubt about it.
How do you handle these conflicts? Because they rise up, all kinds of political stuff, how do you deal with that and stay in the middle?
I just close the door and hide. No, I hate conflict. It's a necessary part of life. And for whatever reason, my wife calls me the United Nations. I'm a peacemaker by nature. I don't like arguments. I don't like people fighting. But I've learned, I think, through the years how to help people see common ground. I had opportunities throughout my ministry and even, doing nonprofit work to do some marital counseling and different kinds of counseling. And so just helping people through conflict kind of was something that I found myself in the middle of quite a few times. And really, this sounds really cliche and probably kind of, simple, but just listening solves a lot of it, because a lot of conflict occurs with miscommunication. People stop listening. They think that they heard something or they received something in the wrong way. And if you can help both sides stop and listen to one another and navigate through, I think what this person is saying is this, but you're not hearing it that way, that solves a lot of conflict.
Because a lot of times we stop communicating and start reacting. Me and Gordon do it all the time.
You heard that, right?
Yeah, I heard it.
You heard exactly what he said.
And but Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers," and there always seems to be few of those. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then people just don't realize, but also sometimes without conflict, there's no forward progress.
That's right.
So it's almost like
you got to have struggle.
You got to have struggle, and if it's not, then a lot of times you can get off the rail either way. But so there's a lot of different ways to look at that conflict, and I know that arises up in the business world and ministries. A lot of times people don't realize how competitive some reason that is. I don't know why. Shouldn't be, but sometimes in the Christian world that we get to that. And but you do so many other things. You're one of our board members at Anchor
Yes.
Ministries Inc. And in fact, you do a pretty active part of it. What we do ourselves in the community and the TV stuff and all. And but you're part of several other boards too, right?
Yeah, I get as the community collaborator, I do get asked to be on several boards, and I don't even know if I could list them. I'm probably on about 10 different boards.
Wow.
But I love going to meetings and I love interacting with people, and it gives me the opportunity to be able to connect organizations that might not ordinarily connect with one another, because I can see, you know, I've trained myself to see where the gaps are,
Yeah.
and to see where there's needs and try to meet those needs with, you know, with resources that are in the community. And that happens so much in nonprofit world, that somebody has a great idea and they go, oh, people need to eat.
Yeah.
Let's start a food ministry, or people need clothes. Let's start a clothes ministry, or people need, you know, whatever it is. And they get, you know, they get ahead of themselves and create a nonprofit instead of looking for places and organizations within the community that already are doing that. And so there's so many opportunities to create those partnerships with organizations or individuals or whoever that just want to, you know, they want to help and they just don't know. So they do it themselves, and you go, hey, there's a wheel over here.
You know,
There's no need.
we're a nonprofit.
Is that right?
I haven't seen a profit since I started here
What
at all.
Whatever they paying you, we'll double it.
That's terrific. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So, still a nonprofit. But that's all right. Hey, I'm not here for me.
That's right.
It's heavenly treasures.
It's happened. Yeah, build up our
Just keep
treasure.
telling yourself
That's
that.
right.
Yep, there you go. That's where your treasure. Yeah,
That's where our treasure lies.
Yeah, there you go.
The only place.
Yeah, and so yeah, that's really good. So basically, what you're saying is find where God's working and join in. Sometimes you don't have to go start anything.
It's as simple as that. Yeah.
And if
you
people
look
knew
what's
how
going on.
painful it is to start a nonprofit, sometimes it can be difficult nowadays. But organizations like yours help people walk through, get their 501(c)(3)s, point them in the right direction. And you're also not a yes man. You ask the hard questions.
That's
Hey,
right.
why are we doing this? What is the vision? Why,
That's right.
you know, what is the direction? So you're not just saying, oh yeah, let's do this or do that. So you kind of help everybody hem it in, and we need more people like that. I think sometimes it's easy to get yes guys that will agree with you, but then a lot of times that just causes you to sit still.
Well, and you need people like that in your life that
Mhm.
aren't just going to say yes, 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 but that really will. At least I found that in my life. I
Yeah,
need
yeah.
people in my life that are going to go, do you really need that candy bar? Like,
Yeah.
for real? You know,
Yeah.
I don't like those people, but I need them in my life. You know, we need some of those people that ask the hard questions and that hold us accountable.
That's
Well,
right.
Well, you know, a lot of ministries do. They think maybe they have freedom outside of the church, and really they don't realize you need even more structure, more organization to keep you in check, because it is really easy to get off. And ministry, it's harder when people really think it is, because you're
That's
dealing
right.
with the pain of the community, not only the good part of the community, but you're dealing with the pain.
That's right.
And that makes it more difficult. And a lot of ministries struggle because they think, man, I can do whatever I want to, and it falls apart on them.
When we've got to be careful how we help people.
Yeah.
Because it's all too easy to get that savior
Yeah.
complex,
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Where,
yeah.
I'm here to help you.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the last time I looked, I'm not perfect either. And we've got to, when we approach pain, I think in any situation, we have to approach it very humbly and say, I'm broken, you're broken. We're probably broken in different ways, but we're both broken.
Yeah, yeah.
And we create a lot of hurt when we come in and we say, you're broken, let me help you.
Yeah, oh, yeah. And you're ministering out of that brokenness and you're hurt. Yeah, that can be a disaster. And
In talking about poverty is emotional poverty. That we,
Oh.
more so than ever, and especially since the pandemic has hit, we've become more and more isolated. And there's a pandemic, if you want to say that, we want to use that word, of emotional poverty, where people are spent, they're traumatized, they don't, and that happens. I don't care how much money is in your checking
Right.
account. Hopelessness happens.
This is the first time in history. I mean,
That's right.
in recorded history that since we've been a country, anything like this has happened to where everyone has to be separated. And we're such a people who need others, and to be told you can't do it.
That's right.
It's like that's a challenge.
Well, talking about some of those emotional things, we're pretty high up. I don't know what the percentage is on suicides in the state of Georgia, but that seems to be all over the country, all this rise in suicide. So how do y'all, I mean, you deal with some of these ministries that deal with some of those things, and it goes back to that same thing you were just talking about, right?
That's right. And it is. It's that emotional poverty and getting to a place where we've got to check on each other. Connections matter,
Yeah.
I've got to call and check on you. And I've found that sometimes those are prompts from God, that somebody comes to your mind and you go, I wonder how that person is. And it doesn't take but just a minute to pick up the phone and say, hey, I was thinking, even if you leave a message, hey, I was thinking about you. I hope you're doing all right. Call me sometime. Let's connect. Even just a text message of, hey, how you doing? Means a lot. And for that person that has lost hope, who buys into a lie that they're all alone. I mean, that's the catch, is that aloneness leads to that total desperation, that total hopelessness of, I'm all by myself.
And two, we're almost like bury our heads into saying, oh, it can't happen to my family. It can't happen to my child. It can't happen. We had Pastor Richard Brown on a while back, and what happened with his son was tragic. And, it's, what are the signs? That's why when we get people on here, we'll ask them, hey, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And stuff like that. What are the signs? What should we be looking for? The desperation to cause somebody to do something like that, or turn to drugs or alcohol,
Right.
And
it's different. I mean, I've witnessed cases where, bye honey, I'm leaving for work, and they had no idea. What in the world, had no idea that this person was depressed, or that this person was, had felt that isolated. There's an uptick in pastors committing suicide, and you think, man, and I think the deal is that there is also an isolation that comes in being around people, but not allowing yourself to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right. Not being open to, how are you? We fall into that. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Everything's good. You're blessed. Thank you. And we're not okay.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, it's kind of like a lot of ministers I talk to, it's like they feel like they live in a glass house and everybody's got rocks, and there is some truth to that.
That's right.
So yeah, it's definitely, and then you got isolation.
I was a facilitator at this Alliance for Mental Illness.
Mm-hmm.
And the stories, I mean, people would just gather just to share what they're going through. I haven't been there in a long time. After I found God, that freed me up a lot. And the place, after I found the Lord, we would meet in a church, and then I'd start sharing the Lord. And even though we were in a church, that was a no-no. So I was like, well, I'm trying to share something that set me free, that might be able to help, because that's all I knew that could help me. And I haven't been back, but it was sobering to see how many people that are out there who, even if they're surrounded by people, are still miserable. And I mean, I came from that. I was there before, until the Lord saved me from that. Mm-hmm. And I can speak to that, but the world is full of despair, and this, I mean, isn't helping with the mental state of people.
Well, and type A people drive me nuts. I'm not a type A personality. It's that personality that says, well, just stop, just get better.
Yeah.
Just come on. Well, it's not
Pull
hard.
yourself up by your own bootstraps. Yeah.
And
Christianity is a whole different way.
That's right.
You're broken. You can't do it.
Right. Let somebody else. pull you up. But it's even in talking about that hopelessness, as I started studying poverty and learning more about the different facets of poverty, a presenter that I learned from shared a story about an experiment that scientists did with a group of rats. And they built this maze and put cheese at the end, and put the rats in, and the rats, given them enough time, would find the cheese. They'd make it through the maze and they'd find the cheese. Well, they took a second group and they set the maze up to where the walls were electrified. And so if a rat touched the wall, it would shock it. And so rats would go and they'd touch a wall and they'd shock it and they'd, kind of back up a little bit until finally they learned, don't touch the walls. And so they'd make it through the maze and they'd get the cheese. So this third set of rats, they just shocked them at random. So as they were going through the maze, if they touched a wall, they'd shock them. And then they'd do something else and they'd shock them. And those rats, because nothing they did seemed to work, curled up in the fetal position wherever they were in the maze and died. I mean, they lost hope. And I think we've got people.
Oh boy.
I think we've got people all over that are in that situation. Everything that they've tried has failed. It hasn't worked. It's busted. There's been no luck. And so that they do, when that happens and you go, everything I choose is a lose situation. Right. Yeah. I'm going to stop choosing.
And so many people feel like they're in that right now.
That's right.
They're like, what can I do? There's nothing I can do that makes, because we're all people pleasers. And that's, if you're a good person, you want to, look out for other people. And then when that's shocked out of you, how do you cope?
Right.
Yeah. And sometimes, really, the bottom line is Jesus is the true answer. Sometimes we just don't know.
Answer.
But a lot of times we just don't know how to apply the cure.
That's
and
right.
And sometimes as Christians, we get that confused. So I think that's the big thing. Man, I can't believe we're out of time.
I know.
Ain't that unbelievable? I always have to kill me. Man, Doug, I'm so glad you came with us.
Yeah,
and
it's been good to be here.
I'd like to have you back on, man. And
absolutely.
Because you got a lot to say and a little bit of time to do it.
That's right.
So, hey, it was great to be here tonight. I hope y'all can be with us next week. Say goodbye, Gordon.
This is Cherry Coke.
Of course.
Ugh. Goodbye, Gordon.
Take a walk.